My name is Chris, and for the Chainlink Spring 2023 Hackathon, I put together an app called ChainHedge. Now, many of us have been monitoring the rapid increase in inflation rate happening across the board in the US and potentially beyond. And the problem with a lot of existing ways of hedging against these inflation rates for businesses is you often have centralized parties with large middleman fees, such as exchanges. You could have a slow claims process for the insurance policies themselves. For example, if you wanted to be able to put aside some of your capital to protect against large swings in inflation, you might not always be able to create the exact policy or terms you want, and often these exchanges have a KYC policy that might restrict some global participants unnecessarily. So I wanted to use Chainlink and the Truflation APIs, along with some of the tooling from Space and Time, to create an app that created self-auditing and self-managing smart contracts that enabled any two parties to create and purchase policies that are based on the inflation rate reaching or not reaching a certain target at a given time, and enabling a payout if a certain inflation target is met. To connect, you simply hook up your MetaMask wallet, you can create your custom policy, and you're immediately taken to this flow that you can create a new insurance contract. Now, there's a few different terms that you can name where you, as the issuer of the policy, can specify any number of terms around like the premium of the policy. So this is what the buyer would immediately pay your contract, as well as the payout if a certain inflation target is met. I have some example demo values that you can provide. In this case, the current inflation rate is actually rendered right here in the flow in real time, so you can see a baseline. And let's say I wanted to create a policy that said, hey, I want to enable buyers to buy this insurance policy that if the inflation hits 5% by July 6th, then this contract will pay out the buyer, but if not, I can capture the premium and not necessarily have to go through an exchange, but rather use Chainlink and Truflation to manage the policy entirely. So let's say I'm good with these terms. You simply wait a few moments and a smart contract gets deployed for every policy, which only one buyer can participate in. If you want to create more policies, you can simply create new contracts. And every contract that you want to be able to sell gets a unique URL that you can share with other buyers. So just give this a few moments. Once it's done, you can get a shareable link or view the contract itself. From here, this is the URL that you could actually share with a buyer. Now note, the buyer needs to connect his or her wallet address in order to view the particular policy, but if the buyer is connected, he or she can purchase the policy if it hasn't been purchased yet. Secondly, the contract gets deployed with immutable terms, and the premium or the payout of the contract can only be withdrawn by the owner when the expiration is met without the buyer's terms actually being hit with the inflation target. So let's say this looks good. I could come in as any arbitrary wallet and purchase the policy, and now this has been transacted, and now I've essentially created a connection between a buyer and a seller. If you wait a few moments, there's a purchase transaction that gets posted against the contract, as well as the original creation. If you refresh this page, the policy has actually been purchased. So if I'm the buyer, if I check the inflation target, there's a certain fee that needs to be paid to the contract itself. And so to do this, you can simply say, okay, I want to send some amount of link to enable this contract to check the Truflation oracle. When that's done, now I can actually check the inflation amount, and if that certain value is met, there's logic in the smart contract, and I'm going to go over to code real quick. But if you scroll down here, the inflation is checked and saved to the contract in real time, and only when the latest inflation target is met can the buyer actually redeem the premium and pay out the policy. Now, the history of any of the policies can be looked up using a structured query in-app against the blockchain itself. And you can get a quick view of the transactions and the checks that have been done against the contract. And every time a check is done against the contract, an event is emitted that can be indexed or queried for analytics later on. In terms of the app itself, it's available on my GitHub along with the flow I just showed. I encourage you to check it out, but that's pretty much the ChainHedge project, and thanks for your time.